Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I know I'm wearing my PJs and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but the Noah top can't wait, so let's get started. Alright, so for materials, you're going to need some lining fabric and some outer fabric, and for this tutorial, you're going to need a total of a yard. You're also going to need rubber elastic, and I'm using 1/4 inch rubber elastic, which will be linked in the description. You're also going to need other sewing tools like scissors, a rotary cutter, seam ripper, and a loop turner. And of course you will need a pattern, and this pattern is the Noah top PDF pattern. It's available for instant download and it's linked in the description. So first we're going to be cutting our pieces, and we're going to start off by cutting one of the front and one of the back piece. And I'm using this patterned fabric as my lining. Now for the back piece, I'll usually cut it just as normal, but for this front piece, since it does have some pretty dramatic corners, I do like to cut it on the fold. So you'll see that I fold the fabric in half and I line up the front piece so it's butted towards the edge there, and then I'll cut. So once you have one of the front and one of the back in the lining, we're going to switch over to our self fabric, also called the outer fabric. And again, I'm going to cut one of the front and one of the back piece. So next you're going to cut your straps, and you're going to cut them to be 1 1/4 inch by about 6 to 8 inches. You're also going to cut a band piece, which I made 2 inches by about 26 inches. And there are some more specific instructions on the sizing and dimensions of the straps and band linked in the PDF. But a good rule of thumb is that whatever size you're using for elastic, for your straps, you're going to want them to be about 3 times the width. And for the band, you're going to want them, depending on how you plan on attaching the band, which I'll go over later, you're going to want the band measurement to be either double the width of your elastic or quadruple. But I will touch more on that later. So now that you have all of your pieces, we're going to begin construction. So you're going to put your front pieces with right sides together, as well as your back pieces with right sides together. And for the back piece, you're going to pin along that top edge. And for the front piece, you're going to pin the armholes, the neckline, and that little cutout on the bottom. And we're going to switch over to our machine and get sewing. And I do want to mention that for the front piece, we are going to be sewing that little V, but we are going to use a different machine. For now, I'm not pinning it, but we'll get back to it later. So switching on over to my machine, I'm going to be attaching my elastic at the same time I'm serging the fabric together, and I'm able to do this with my elastic foot. If you don't have an elastic foot, you're just going to break down the process into 2 steps, and you're going to serge the fabric together, and then you're going to attach the elastic right on top. And I like to attach my elastic onto whatever side is my outer fabric. So I'm attaching my elastic onto the side that's green. So you're going to sew your back piece as well as the areas on the front. Now that that's all done, I'm going to switch over to my regular sewing machine, and I'm going to be using a straight stitch to stitch that deep V. Now you could use a serger for this, but I've just found that with a sewing machine I have a little bit more control, and being able to trim the seam allowance really close helps to have that V keep its shape. So using a straight stitch, I'm going to go in about 1/4 inch in from the open edges, and I'm just going to stitch all the way down. And this should completely enclose that V. So now you can see we have that V sewn up, and there are a couple ways that you can do this to make sure that it turns well. One of them is you can take your scissors, and at the very tip of the V, you can cut inside of the seam allowance, and you're just going to cut a little slit. This will help it lay flat when it's turned to the right side. Another option, and I'm going to do this one, is you can completely trim the seam allowance so it's very close to the stitch itself. And this will have that same effect of allowing the V to sit flat when it's turned to the right side. So now that those pieces are done, we're going to put them to the side and we're going to make our strap. So take your strap piece and fold it with right sides together, hot dog style, and you're going to serge along that open edge, attaching elastic at the same time. And once you've done that, you're going to come back to the mat and you're going to use the loop turner to turn the strap to the right side. Once that's done, you're going to take your scissors and cut the strap in half. And now we're going to attach the strap into the top. So you're going to find your front piece, and while it's still inside out, you're going to insert each of the straps inside of the strap openings. Pin them down, and then you're just going to sew across to secure those straps down. And I'm using my serger for this, but I know that some people do like to use a regular sewing machine and do a straight stitch to secure the straps, but it's up to you. So these straps are in, and now we can take that front piece to the right side. Switching gears, we're going to get our back piece out, and I'm going to mark where I want the straps to go in. So I usually like to put my straps in about 3.5 inches from the edge. So I'm going to mark that with my marker, and then I'm going to take my seam ripper and I'm going to rip up those seams so that I can fit some straps in there. If you'd like to, you can go back over where you ripped just to make sure that nothing's going to come unraveled. So now you're going to lay your front piece and back piece with right sides together, and you're going to insert your straps into the strap openings that we just made. At this point, you're going to want to make sure that the straps aren't twisted and that everything is good to sew down. So insert your straps where they should go and pin them down from the inside out. And as you can see, since we haven't sewn that bottom edge, I'm able to just flip over the fabric and secure those straps down from the inside. Now we're going to need to attach the sides together. So same thing, I'm going to lay my piece with right sides together, but this time I'm going to take each of the sides and I'm going to open them up so that right sides are together, and I'm just going to sew straight across. And I'm going to do this with both sides. So as you can see, these sides are now sewn together, and as soon as I flip them down, you will see that the top is really starting to come together. Next step is we're going to attach that band. So first, I ended up trimming down my band to be about 26 inches, and I'm going to fold it in half, hamburger style this time, and I'm just going to sew it so it's one circle. So as you can see, I'm just sewing that edge right there. So now once you have your circle, you're going to insert it over the top. So when you're doing this, of course, make sure that right sides are together, and you're going to pin as many pins as you need to. And to attach this band, we're going to sew all along every edge. And it's important to attach elastic while doing this because it will help us later on when we're cover stitching, and it'll just give it some more structure. So after that band is sewn, the final step is going to be cover stitching it. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this band. One of them is just flipping it over and sewing. And another way is flipping it over twice and sewing. I ended up flipping it over once and sewing, and then I went back and trimmed off all of the excess. So off camera, I converted my machine over to the cover stitch function, which takes off the knife and it allows it to do that double needle look. Make sure to take your time with this step because it does take some practice to be able to get the cover stitch looking as clean as possible. An optional last step is going back to this V area and making a top stitch about 1/4 inch in that just frames the V, and that will help prevent it from stretching out of its shape. I decided not to do this since I didn't notice too much of a difference, but it's something that you definitely can do if you wanted to. And here's how the cover stitch turned out. My stitching is not perfect, but overall it looks really good and I think it has that great professional finish. And here's the final result. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. If you haven't already, then please go and visit edgewateravenue.com and follow the Instagram page I made. It's edgewaterave. And of course, if you're interested in getting the instant download PDF pattern for the Noah top, that is going to be linked below, so make sure to check it out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.